This is a news review segment where we review what the papers are reporting this morning. But before we go into what the papers are reporting, let me introduce to you my guest for the show. Kwame Nkrumah Botio is the General Secretary of the CPP. He's here. And Mr. Danquah is also the spokesperson for the movement of change, the Butterfly Army, the Yellow Army. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Well.
We are fine.
Okay. As we do usually, I'll start with you, Danquah. You have an issue you want to pour out before we go into what the papers are reporting.
Yes, so let me wish your lovely viewers a good morning. Always a pleasure to be in your company. And my own brother and mate, a good morning. I think on Tuesday and Wednesday, we saw a report that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama Stackson, his ministers, to declare the assets by 31st March.
Yeah.
And that was after he himself declared his assets. And as much as it was a step in the right direction concerning the negative impact of corruption on our democratic efforts, for me, I think as much as I want to commend him, I think it's just a small step in fulfilling one of the fundamental principles that underpins our constitution, the principles of probity and accountability. And to say that beyond they declaring, there's a need for us to also ask for proper declaration. That brown envelope declaration, in my view, isn't enough. It's not enough. And the fact that it takes them close to 6 months, because over the years, what I've noticed is that they seek for extension. Most of them don't even declare that this time, if really we are committed to resetting the country, it means that we are resetting our attitude towards the principles that underpins this democratic effort. And so to that end, we should have proper declaration, and also there must be a call for frequent and periodic lifestyle audit. As in that habit of people earning X amount and leaving 3X doesn't help anybody. Also, we must also alter our culture and make it much more transparent. This issue of we not knowing, especially how much public officers earn and then they live in lifestyles that's, or people going to public office and suddenly they are multi-millionaires. It doesn't do anything. Doesn't help our democracy. So yes, I want to commend the president, but I'll add there's a small step in the fight against corruption, and that as much as he is seeking to reset, I think that reset effort will not be completed unless we reset our values and our principles to align entirely with the principles of probity and accountability.
Interesting. Okay.
My take is along similar lines, especially where my brother said things should be done properly and not just this brown envelope declaration. And in light of that, one of the government appointees has done something which I think is it's a step in the right direction. Because if you want things to be done properly, it's even everywhere. If you look at 1 Corinthians 14:40, he said, let all things be done decently and in order. Felix Gyamfi, the head of the National Service Authority, he's been granted various interviews. And he has said over and over again that we should allow the state institutions to investigate the allegations. Because if we keep on throwing figures out there, assuming somebody is guilty, they'll be able to regroup and find a way to wriggle out. At the same time, too, if the people are innocent, then you end up tarnishing their names forever. He even mentioned how, from their investigations, it is 80,000 names, and they are still looking into it. But the figures going around says 220,000 names. A lot of names are being bandied about. And as a high-ranking member of the NDC himself, I think that he doesn't seem to be towing the line of what business as usual or politics as usual, that they did it to us, so we must do it to them. That vindictiveness is missing. And I would like to praise him. I'd like to praise him. And just as my brother said, things should be done properly. Investigation should be done properly. Let's not be accusing people, because there are all kinds of accusations going around against both NDC and NPP officials. Let's remember that these people have families, they have children in school, all kinds of things are said against them. Last week I said it was a day of love, so let's do everything with love. And today I think we should try and do everything in order. We have our structures. Let's allow the structures to work.
Thank you very much. All right, let's go into the papers. I have the Daily Graphic. I have the Ghanaian Publisher. What do you have?
I have the News Center and the Daily Banner.
Okay, all right.
I have the Custodian.
The Custodian. Okay, let's start with the Daily Graphic then. Now, on the front page of the Daily Graphic, it says President Mahama delivers State of the Nation address next week. So we'll be expecting that he will deliver what the state is like next week. 10% pay rise for government workers. Minimum wage now 19 cedis, 97 pesos. Ghana Health Service Director Health Facility to set up PWD's desk. Kwame Asumenin leads Ghana Association of Banks, and Payaza launches SME funding initiative. Now, of course, everyone is interested in the minimum wage, you know. So he says the government has, and organized labor yesterday agreed on a new base pay of 10% across the board for workers in the public sector. The development means that all public sector workers on the single spine salary structure will have an increment in their basic salaries by 10% from January to December this year. In addition, the National Tripartite Committee also set the national daily minimum wage at 19 cedis, 97 pesos. This implies that any Ghanaian earning salary or allowance, including house helps, nannies, and guards, must not be paid less than that in a day, or 559 cedis, 16 pesos a month, using 28 days. Well, I don't know what you make of it. Dankwa, obviously good news, or?
No good news.
No good news. Okay.
No good news.
All right. 10% increase.
No good news.
Okay.
No good news because it was inflation now.
Above, I think it's around 23.
And so if inflation is 23% and you increase somebody's salary less than 50%, up to more less than 50% of what the inflation rate is, then as in, you are putting them in a situation where they will struggle. You understand? But you see, it brings a bigger issue. See, this job issue is an issue that we need to tackle critically. Yeah, because I think it's an opportunity for us to expand the conversation beyond the 10% increment, which in my view is just not adequate. Okay. As in is just not adequate. But then there's a bigger conversation about jobs. I think was it last week where we spoke about the slotism issue.
Yeah. The protocol.
The protocol and the slot. You see, and I think before the show began, we were a slight conversation about the SME thing. So we need to understand that when you want to create jobs, you want to give your citizens the chance of living well, you understand? Then what history has taught us that the key is in aiding your SMEs. Because what is happening in this country is because there's practically no deliberate support for small and medium scale enterprises. Businesses can't grow, and so they have practically no jobs. So even if there are jobs, the businesses are not in the position, haven't been able to grow enough to be able to pay the few jobs they create well. And so there's so much pressure on the public sector jobs.
Yeah.
So much pressure there. Yeah. You get a picture. Now, because the SMEs also are not growing, that means that government's revenue will be hampered. Okay. Because government makes revenue from the businesses. So if you do not deliberately support your businesses, then how are you going to get your revenue? And so even though inflation is, so that's just a small bit of the issue, because there's a whole huge discussion that needs to be had in my view. So then there are no jobs because government is not helping the SMEs. So there's so much pressure on the public And yet, because government is unable to also generate revenue, even where there's inflation is about 23%, and if you calculate the average inflation over the past year, it won't be even 23%. Because you must recall that inflation got to about 50-something%. So if you are calculating the average, it will hover around 30-something%. And you increase the public sector salaries by 10%. That's a huge problem.
So what actually do you want government to do?
I think, you see, and we do not have to reinvent the wheel. Even mighty, I said here and I'll say it again, even almighty America, after the Second World War, where the economies had been tanked for close to 15 years, they revived the economy by their then President Dwight Eisenhower, introducing what we call the Small Business Act, which created the small business agencies. So today, if you go to the USA, they have small business agencies in every district, and their focus is, one, to give institutional support in terms of capacity, and two, so that at least the companies will have the proper structures and proper corporate governance system, and two, to also create a system where the government uses its power of fiscal policy and monetary policy to make access to financing easy for the SMEs, because that's the way to go. Indeed, in fact, when you also go to Europe, the Marshall Plan, if you can say the Marshall Plan, which essentially revived a continent that had been plagued in war and had been destroyed, ravaged by war for about 6 years. And when you add the Great Depression, it's a period of about 15 years. But when you go into the Marshall Plan, you see the focus of the plan was how do we aid deliberately, and the word here is deliberately, aid the small, medium-scale enterprises to grow, because that's how you grow your economy. Because government is dependent on their revenues through taxation, and so you must deliberately grow them. Then you cannot be assured of your revenue. Then beyond your revenue, then they will also create more jobs. So do not be enough pressure on what's called the public sector jobs. And Ghana here is the country for a very long time has been on autopilot. There's no deliberate effort to help the small and medium scale enterprises. So they're just there. So because you haven't aided them, they are not in the position to generate enough revenue for themselves so that you can make it legitimate what's called a claim on their taxes. They're unable to create jobs. So what happens is there's always pressure on government. And that's the reason why over the past few years, the MPs even went during their campaign on the back of slots. I'll give you slots. And I'll give you slots. Because they have not created the environment, deliberately created the environment where jobs can legitimately be created. And we need a massive reset in that thinking. Aid the SMEs, deliberately aid the SMEs. Use your power of fiscal policy and monetary policy to aid the SMEs. Then you get the jobs, you get the revenue, and the government and all of us will be about 10% where there's inflation of 20%. What have we done?
Interesting. But quite an interesting perspective, Dan Kwasi.
Yeah.
I don't know if you share with him. I will let you touch on your thought. But he gave the example of the America and the Europes. But in a country, Ghana, where we are divided or we are polarized along political lines, how can we ensure that we also do have such a master plan like he talks about, where the focus won't be on whether this business is owned by someone belonging to my party or not? How do we cure that in order to help every business in Ghana to thrive? Because when they thrive, we create jobs, and the jobs would also then impact on government's revenue.
It's a matter of focus. It's a matter of focus. You know, over the past week, even listening to the news, you realize that we are all focused on this polarization. Our primary focus in this country is let's go after them. Let's go after these people. When we came to power, they did this. When we came to... Those things are important, but they should be secondary. Let the institutions work in the background. Let them do the investigation. But the government itself, its primary focus is to assist the indigents, not to jump into the trenches and go after this person, go after that person. We have the prosecutorial agencies, we have the courts. Leave them to do their work. But the focus is so much on politics and tarnishing this party or that party, tarnishing this person or that person. So we forget about the core mandate of lifting the people, providing for the SMEs. And that has brought us to a situation where we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because what is happening now is that we are gradually going back into that tree, as they say, wait me, we're coming, wait me, we're coming. It really hurts me to say this, but the government hit the ground running. But from the airwaves this week, it is more of, let's go after them. Yes, go after whoever has looted. But what about the SMEs? What are you doing for them? The voice of progress, the voice of what we are doing to help the ordinary man should be louder than the voice of who we are going after. Even though going after people is important, because the money that is retrieved from corruption can be used to do a lot of things. But the money that can be made from helping these SMEs can be used to do even more. We are between a rock and a hard place. 559 Ghana cedis is woefully inadequate. How much is transportation? Even if, assuming you even live next door to your workplace.
But it used to be less, oh.
It used to be less, yes. It's terrible. Assuming you even live next door to your workplace, so you don't pay anything on transportation. 559 Ghana cedis, that's 20 cedis. Can 20 cedis feed you and your family for the day? Can 20 and then rent, buying soap, buying prepaid. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
No, it's ridiculous. It breaks my heart. Yeah. It totally, this is nothing. But then you can have genuine employers who want to assist. But these employers, some cannot even cough up this 559 Ghana cedis. So what you're going to have is, you're still going to have people being paid less than this. You're going to have people being paid less than this. People doing 001, 010, 100. People eating once a day. This is terrible. This is terrible. And we must reset our focus. We must focus on going forward. You listen to other countries. It's all about, oh, we've made this medical breakthrough. Oh, we are giving aid to this country. We are doing this. We've made this breakthrough in education, this, that. But ours is different. I don't think we've always been like this. Because if you go right down to our traditional societies, it's not about accusing people willy-nilly. There's a lot of respect. I don't know how we came to this situation, but our politics has become something else. There's not, I don't think there's a real focus to move, to make the progress of the country the primary focus of I would say, the political class. Or I wouldn't single out any party. The primary focus is to strengthen the parties themselves, not to strengthen the country. We need to reset. And I know His Excellency, so far, he has been a moderate voice. His speech the day he was sworn in, it gave me a lot of hope. And I really hope and pray that the State of the Nation address is a chance for him to reset our focus when it comes to what to do about what is happening in this country. Let's discuss ideas. Let's discuss funding. If you look at the United States and other countries, it is the private individuals who have been assisted by the state.
Yeah.
The Walmarts, the Amazons, if you go to the UK, the Sainsbury's, the Tesco's and all that.
And even in Russia, we've had a story about the oligarchs.
Yeah.
And then also,
the oligarchs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also China.
Yes.
Massive support for
yes.
private people.
Yes. But over here, everybody is clamoring to work directly for the state. You see, the state should be more of a supervisor and less of an employer. Then we will move forward.
Yeah. Interesting. Let me welcome Prof. Onto the show. Prof, welcome.
Welcome.
Great to have you. I don't know, maybe we'll also give you a chance if you have any issue you want to speak about first before I bring you into what we are discussing from the Daily Graphic.
On the increment.
But usually we do give opportunity for you to say maybe you have an issue on your mind you want to pour.
Good morning
then,
to
Good morning.
friends. It's been a while. Been away for some time. That's fine. I think it's on the same 10% pay rise. And what has caused this as a basis is inflation. Persistent increase in the general price of goods and services without production. If you have production, we won't talk about this. It's a key thing. We are talking about 10%, and I appreciated the analysis of my good brother. The workers' union, I mean, this is being advocated by a sector of our economy, the public sector wage, not the private. If there's an increment, remember, the private sector also will start demanding. That will be a big issue for the country. 10%, good or bad. And I heard on the other platform about the labor union, former labor union president, Austin Game. He attributed to the fact that we should consider production and the fact that we should put performance management system in place. Why are you increasing the wages of people? On what basis? Is it because of production? Is it because they have performed well? Do we have system to check the performance of these staffs in the offices? Today we are talking about this. Remember, there have been a lot of issues in our country. Pre-2010, we had fragmented salary structure over the period. Then when it entered in 2010, we had a single spine. And that increase was about 20 to 30% wages for staff, for people. Then somewhere in 2010, 2015, annual increments also came. So we had a standard over the period. Now between 10, 15, 20%, we're hovering around that area. If you decide to increase my salary, and we'll have further discussion later on about the relationship between wage increments and inflation. One is a bi-directional relationship. One can cause the other. Inflation can cause a wage increment, or wage increment can also cause inflation.
More money to spend.
So we are careful which one are we focusing on. Later we'll have because we don't have time to go into the nitty-gritties, the details of this, difficult. 10%. What is the inflation rate today? In 20-something.
Yeah.
23.5.
And if you want to have real inflation, deduct all this from the figure. Tell the actual figure that we have. 10%, woefully inadequate.
Hey.
Woefully inadequate. And I don't know what we can do as a country. But you see, I wish the 24-hour economy should be able to provide jobs, create other jobs for these individuals so that they are not, they won't go through this hell. Because if you increase, in a few weeks to come, the private sector will start demanding for an increase.
Yeah.
So my thinking is that government must have different avenues to create jobs or give the enabling environment for people to create jobs. SME, very good avenue. And I'm sure 24-hour economy is able to do this magic. The people in our country.
Yeah.
The last thing on this is that at what point did this issue get to that the president had to intervene? You make the minister powerless. For me. Because I don't know whether they threatened demonstration as a last resort. I don't know what happened. But if you keep doing this over time, everybody wants to talk to you.
Yeah.
They will sideline the president.
They will sideline the minister.
The minister, sorry. So we need to empower them to negotiate. The skills to be there. When they want to do choboy, let's go there. The minister must be the one to calm matters and ensure that, we negotiate all the issues fairly. The president should be the last person stepping.
Yeah, but he was the last.
But at what point?
When it came to a head.
Well, at that point, I'm not sure they had exhausted all the avenues.
Okay.
So we should get.
But doesn't that action by the president also inspire hope that this is a president who wouldn't mind him being the president, but would be there, to join you when issues heat up and we have to have a solution. We have to get a solution to issues.
I don't have a problem, but I was trying to find out at what point you intervene.
Okay.
We should empower our ministers to have that negotiation skills. We start with workers. That's my point.
Okay. All right. Grateful to you, Prof, there for joining us. Professor Isaac Boadi is Dean, Accounting and Finance, UPSA. This is still the news review segment. We are on the daily graphic. Now the Ghana Health Service has directed all facilities under the service to provide a desk at the outpatient department to assist persons with disability with immediate effect. The officers at the desk are to assist the persons, the PWDs from the OPD till they leave the facility. The Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Professor Samuel Kaba Akoriye, said this when he engaged the National Council for Persons with Disability and executives of the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations in Accra last Wednesday. Both let me start with you. Coming too late in the day? Or?
Well, I would say that it's better late than never. Better late than never, and it's a step in the right direction. Our PWDs, brothers and sisters, they have a lot to offer to the nation. If you look at other jurisdictions, they do a lot. I think there was even one prominent scientist, I've forgotten his name. Who passed away about
some years ago.
This physicist, this expert, about 2 years ago. And I think it's a step in the right direction, and more, even more should be done for them, because the disadvantages that they encounter, we do not encounter. And as one prominent PWD said a few years ago, it takes only a second for you also to become a PWD. It can happen through an accident or anything like that. I'm not saying it to happen to anybody. But putting things in place for the PWDs is also, securing your own safety one day or that of your children or relatives. So having a special desk for them, it's in order, because if you look at the hospitals and clinics around, I think almost all of them now have ramps for wheelchairs and all that. If you go to a lot of the churches, they have ramps for wheelchairs and all that. But then when it comes to the hospital beds, the facilities in the consulting rooms and all that, do we have adequate facilities for these PWDs? And does it cover, there are all kinds of PWDs. There are the ones that, we have one unique one, which is those who are both deaf and blind. There are people like that. Do we have people in the hospitals who can speak to them? Because there's a way to speak to them. But a lot of these people, they are cared for at home. You have the medical staff having to come on, because when they go to the hospitals, they can't get the care that they need. So it's really a step in the right direction. It is.
So, Danko, from where he said, it means that we need to train the people. How do we make sure that this is effectively being implemented?
So, there again, it comes to the deliberateness of it. And government be reminded always of their obligations. I think when the president takes his oath, I think the last but one oath he takes, knowing his oath is 3. The last one, he says he's going to dedicate himself to the well-being of all manner of persons. No, that all manner of persons, usually when we'll look at it from the tribalism, and all manner of persons also includes people with disability. So that as the people, we must carry everybody along, and we must create a system, a situation where the talent of everybody benefits the country. Yes, so as stand on all forces with what my brother here said, but beyond the hospitals, because it should be the starting point in our secondary schools. How has provisions been made for their comfort in every place. You understand? So I think there must be a deliberate policy. There must be deliberate regulations, rules, requirements. You understand? So where people want permits to construct buildings and undertake businesses, there must be. I think they are, but they must strictly enforce them to ensure that nobody is left behind in a pursuit or in a quest to create a society where we are dedicated to all manner of people, to ensure that every dream, as much as possible, every dream is fulfilled.
All right. Prof, you want to have a bite on this before we move on to the other subject?
The idea is to set up a DEX.
Yes,
for them.
PWD. So when they walk into the hospital, the OPD, someone would have to be with them till they leave eventually.
Well, any attempt to support people with disability, in the end of the day, I will support. My good friend ended on a good note that anybody, any one of us, in a minute, will be in the same situation.
Yeah.
So it's time for us to support them. But there are times we say some of these things by words, actions, and we don't have a plan for these people. And if we check from the manifestos that we have read so far, all of them, all the political candidates, the aspirants, make provisions for these people. When they come to power, implementation is a problem. Just our nose here, around a circle and all that, you see people, blind people, chasing cars, asking for support. That stage, what happened to these individuals? What are we doing? The question I want to ask, do we have a budget line for these individuals? Helping me at the hospital, fine. When I leave the hospital, what happens to me again? Well, no. Where's the budget line? I've not seen. I'm yet to see that in this coming budget. Let's see. Allocations for these people. Then we can say that, we mean what we are saying.
Okay. Now let's move on to the page 16 of the Daily Graphic, an important subject that bothers on all of us. Our forest reserves under threat. Let's protect them. Land and Natural Resources Minister to citizens. So it's a call on all of us. He says, large tracts of forest reserve in the country have come under serious attack by illegal miners. So far, an estimated area of over 5,000 hectares, equivalent to 7,500 standard football pitches, has already been devastated. In all, 44 of the 288 forest reserves in the country are gone. The Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Emmanuel Ama Kofi-Boa, disclosed this in Parliament last Wednesday. He mentioned some areas most affected by the illegal mining activities as Bekwai and Nkawie in the Ashanti region, Takwa and Dabuase in the Western region, and Bibiani, Enchi, and Joaboso in the Western North region. Quote, over 9 out of the 44 forest reserves have completely been taken over by these illegal mining thugs with impunity, and the Forestry Commission no longer has access to these reserves, Mr. Boa said. For his solution, says, the minister outlined short and medium to long-term measures to address the situation. Quote, in the short term, we want to clear all water bodies from illegal mining activities through the use of river guards under our Blue Water Initiative. We will also engage stakeholders at all levels to, among other things, strengthen our regulatory and law enforcement regime and get the buy-in of stakeholders on measures being pursued, he added. Prof, let me start with you. Do you think it's been too much talk and less action, or less effective action? What exactly do we need to do?
I understand the difficulties in everyone's mind in terms of providing solution to this problem. Same issue, this land issue, forest reserves issues, have sent a lot of government to opposition. Others have capitalized on the same issue and made gains out of that. You're in Ghana. Several educations, several attempts by previous and current administrations have not yielded any results. And I don't know when we can have solution to this problem. We have heard the short term. He professed short term.
Yeah.
He mentioned long and short term. I didn't hear anything about the long term.
Okay, so he says for the in the short term. For the short term measure, the minister said he had inaugurated a working committee of experts to undertake a review of the mining sector and licensing regime and recommend immediate radical reforms to sanitize illegal mining activities within forest reserves and water bodies. Long term. So the minister said the fight against illegal mining was not a battle for one individual but a collective. So the country had a total land, blah, 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 blah.
See, I'm
not seeing that. I'm not seeing the long term here.
I'm not happy with the short term measures. Okay. And that's all most of the government, that's what they give to us. Because stakeholders' engagement, for me, it's important. But how effective has it been over the years? Remember the previous administration, Operation Galamstop. You had a lot. Different names and nomenclatures were given. Operation Galamstop, and there was another one, Shoot and Kill.
What was it? No, there wasn't any.
There
was Galamstop. Vanguard, yeah? Operation Vanguard.
Vanguard came.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Operation Halt.
Even to a point that our former president had to put his presence online.
Yeah.
Still. So, my brother, I don't have a solution to this problem. I may not be an expert in that area. But for me, stakeholder engagement is paramount. And our ministers should give us proper long-term measures. You can do the stakeholder engagement for a month. People don't even go to the site to do it. Afterwards, we'll leave it. We'll leave the forest.
Stakeholder engagement.
They go back again. Look at the players involved. We have chiefs, investors, we have some government appointees, and a lot of, I'm not speaking anyhow, we have a lot of records to show that some ministers sometimes are involved. Who do you want to speak to? Today we are in Accra. We think that we will not have effect of this. Remember, there are times because of job and other related activities, you are moved to those regions and you have to drink water. You have to eat food. The northern region, the western region, the eastern region. I'm sure it's only Volta that we don't do mining.
Yeah, we haven't heard of any water being devastated by illegal mining.
In the northern region, a lot of the areas, they do mining. So even if we want to do, I'm sure our law enforcement agent must ensure that we do responsible mining. If we can't stop, then we should find a better way to allow them to operate, operate comfortably.
Dankwa, what do you make of the solutions the minister is suggesting?
Yes. Laughable.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You don't think that river guards can help protect them?
No. River guards can help and all, but listen. When it comes to mining, when it comes to exploration of our natural resources, when it comes to the need to preserve our environment, I think the laws are clear. Enforce the law. Let's just enforce the law. One, clear, because you see the problem, the destruction of our forests, especially the forest reserves, is because when God created this world, He also regulated how the world ought to go. And He created a world that is self-regulatory, like how our human bodies are. You understand? And so there are a number of cycles. You have the carbon cycle, you have the water cycle, and all. And then one of the critical elements of nature that sustains the carbon cycle, one, to maintain the heat levels or to maintain heat at a rate where we will survive. Because if the temperatures go above a certain level, we won't survive. One. Now, we also know that when you have too much carbon, so there must be a balance between your carbon and oxygen in the system. So when you have too much carbon, we all know that there's also a certain coat is formed and heat is retained. It can even impact your climate.
Yeah.
You understand? Indeed, as we speak right now, when you go to the US and when you analyze this sustainable climatic change conference, the North-South agreements, it's about, as in they are highly industrialized and all. But the reason why right now they are prepared to pay money in terms of what we call carbon credit, you understand? It's because when we destroy forests here, you were talking about Accra, it even impacts people outside of this continent.
Yeah.
You understand? So because of the threat and the impact the destruction of our forests can have on us, it is disappointing that successive governments won't just use the powers we've granted them to enforce the law.
Which powers?
Oh, you have executive powers. You have executive powers. Indeed, our Constitution, Article 257, creates in the president a trust.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, under Ghana law, you can't even go and harvest timber, without license. You know, in Ghana, so all the sawmills companies, like how you need a license to harvest, you also need a license to Indeed, even where there are people in the business of private plantations, even the owners of private plantations, they are not allowed to harvest their trees anyhow because of the dire consequences of destroying a forest. So we created a system and said, listen, we'll reserve the forests. That for these forests, you are not even allowed to go there.
So what do you expect government to do that hasn't done?
Enforcement. That's all. Was in the government in architecture, you understand? We by law reserved the forest. We by law says that, listen, land, because when you define land, it's not just what you see. Land goes all the way to all your interests, to hell, and all the way up. But we say, even if my friend Busu has land and he finds any mineral in his natural resources, that mineral and natural resources is for the state. There is a reason. Yeah, understand? And we've created the Minerals Commission, granted you powers. Because when people do galamsey, it's stealing. When somebody goes and harvests a tree without license, it's stealing. Enforce the law. Enforce the law. It's your duty as government to create a system that will make your monitoring and enforcement easier. That's why we've granted them powers. So it's not about everyday stakeholder engagement, because the people involved in this sin, this evil to our country, are the politicians themselves. So there's no will to stop them, because it's they themselves. Did you not hear a story right after what's called His Excellency John Mahama was became president, that the NDC galamseys have gone to sack the MPP galamseys and they've taken over. Yeah, no, did you?
I remember the community mining in Tagba it happened.
Yeah,
in Aboso it happened. Yeah.
So they sacked and they took over. Yeah. No. We can't sit and allow the politicians, people who are supposed to be the avant-gardes, the custodians of our democracy, to put us in a situation where all of our lives will be at risk. Now, another thing that also disappoints me is, you see, at the bottom of it is the economy. I can tell you, if government finds a way of encouraging more people to venture into private plantations and educates people, I know they always take carbon credit. It stays at the forestry. If they find a way of educating people don't know, of educating people that, listen, when you plant trees and you, the forestry company, they set up and make people know a carbon credit regulatory regime and encourage, like I was talking about, deliberately enforcing people, empowering people to venture into private tree plantation, not the sham of tree planting they do. They go and plant orange trees. How much carbon can orange sequestrate? When you know, there's research that tells that you have trees like Odum, Makori, that have the ability to sequestrate so much carbon. Are you aware that right now, 1 ton in the carbon credit market, 1 ton of carbon sequestrated is worth almost around $80, 1 ton. And there's some trees that can sequestrate 1 ton. So if there's a whole economy And there's a whole business in tree plantation, where if government really wants to deal with this problem, you can kill 1,000 birds with one stone.
So individuals can even plant it and get those credits
Then
into their pocket.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
If you go to California, there's a whole carbon credit market there. There are carbon credit brokers. You understand? So that if the bottom line of it is people feel that, listen, there's so much money to be made from the gold, I can tell you that there's much more money to be made from efficient carbon credit, and it's even renewable. Unlike gold, when you take gold, it won't come back again. The tree will come back again because it is renewable. So it's not about we doing the same strategy, stakeholder engagement. We say stakeholder engagement, nothing comes out of it.
Okay.
Let us be deliberate about, first of all, enforce the law, arrest people, and two, open up and educate and empower people to focus on the private tree plantations.
Okay.
And find a way of making them make an economy of it by finding a way of getting them have access to the carbon credits market. And you can deal with this issue.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Both I'll just have to give you like 2 minutes.
Sure. I think in the short term, the minister's proposal may work, because I remember in the early 2000s when we were rounding up our issues with poaching during the Kufuor era, there were some strides made in that sense where forest guards were used against the poaching problem that we had. And there was even a scenario where one forest guard was captured by the poachers and sawed in half. I mean, there were a lot of issues there. But in the end, where is poaching now? We don't have that problem anymore. So using these river guards and all those things, in the short term, it can help. We dealt with our poachers in the early 2000s. But what do we have today? That time was about preserving our wildlife resources, habitat, and all that. But now we have Galamsey taking over. And we feel that, well, the Galamsey may not necessarily be capturing any animals or anything like that. But we also forget that we still have our Wildlife Resources Management Act, 2023, Act 1115. And this talks about protected areas, management of protected areas. We have many forest reserves. If you go to the Upper West, for example, there's a large portion which is protected by the state. So you cannot farm or do any mining activity there. We need to enforce these things. It's a lack of enforcement. It's a lack of prosecution of those found guilty. I'm glad you mentioned the Western North. I remember I was taking a trip to Seshirioso once, and unfortunately, I got lost and ended up. Yes. My Google Map went off at a point due to network.
Okay.
I found myself in the middle of a dense forest, and I'm in a path through trees. And then I came across this huge timber truck, and I saw that people saw me. They scattered. You see, so we still have these problems with illegal logging.
Yeah.
It is not only the Galamsey. We still have illegal logging going on. We still have Galamsey going on. We really, really need to do something about prosecuting those found guilty of these activities. And as my brother said, sometimes you have people in high places being involved. Therefore, it should be a partnership between the state and the local authorities. Because a lot of those on the local areas, they are more interested in preserving their areas.
Yeah.
They should work hand in hand. Because a country cannot develop if it decimates its forests. If you look at the top 7 forested countries, they are all highly developed countries.
Yeah.
The most forested country in the world is Russia.
Yeah.
Russia has the highest forest cover.
Yeah.
Russia still manages to explore for oil. It still manages to do agric. Yes. So that means that we can prosper without having to destroy it. We just have to regulate and be fair to each other. But it's become a free-for-all. Everybody is grabbing. So let me grab my own. You understand me? You have Brazil, Canada, USA, you'll be surprised. USA is the fourth
Yeah.
most forested country. But when we talk about pollution, we talk about USA, we talk about China. China is the fifth. So these people may be polluting, but they are preserving our forests.
In fact, I think it's the
Yes.
responsible
Fantastic
way
point.
people do it
Yes.
because some of the large-scale mining companies are also operating in what you would term as forest,
Exactly.
but you won't see them
Exactly.
destroying the cover.
Yeah.
I've been to some companies I don't want to mention, but when
Yeah.
you fly the drone,
Yeah.
you see wide cover.
Yeah.
But when you go to them, they are under that space
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the training,
The
that
training.
we could give to these.
It's
But these people are not also small-scale miners. These are illegal ones. But maybe we could train the small-scale miners that you are the ones who probably are on the ground. So if you do it this way, these guys can learn from you to know that, oh, we can get the gold in this forest without necessarily destroying the forest.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's see how that...
Or revegetation.
revegetation.
A lot of the big mining companies, they have a whole department whose job is just to revegetate.
Yeah, so I did a documentary for one of them, and it was on how they plant palm on the mined areas. And I tell you what, these guys have huge tract of palm.
Yeah.
And when they do it, they give it to the local people. So the company itself would cultivate the area and will hand it per acre to farmers in the community, and then for them to start earning from it. It's beautiful if you fly the drone and see how they've planted the palm trees.
Yeah. So I mean that is true. There should be some education for these miners to know that it can be done in a sustainable way. Don't just leave them on their own. I think it's a good idea.
Galamsey is killing us.
Yeah.
I hope that people can see it that way and see how we can do responsible mining. It can be done because even when you go outside, I'm told they even mine under riverbeds, but they don't destroy the riverbeds.
Yeah.
How do they do it that we are not able to do it? Maybe we have to do technology transfer through capacity building so that our people can still do these things without because some of the stories we've told, if you look at how they've destroyed the forest, it's really beat your imagination how we can do that to ourselves just because we want to get some money now, But let's go to the Ghanaian publisher. It says, rededicate to democracy, and that's Akufo-Addo telling African leaders. Bawumia jabs Mahama over public sector dismissals. Mahama's cabinet has space for only 2 women. Minority condemns action against Akwatia MP, and national minimum wage up by 10%. I want to do the okay. So former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has urged African leaders to rededicate themselves to democracy and constitutional rule, warning against the resurgence of military takeovers on the continent. He expressed concern over the return of military coups in West Africa, stating that the region had previously reached a consensus on multi-party democracy as the best governance model. Speaking at the launch of General Ibrahim Babangida's autobiography, A Journey in Service in Abuja, Nigeria, Akufo-Addo praised the former Nigerian leader for his candid reflections on governance, military rule, and the complexities of leadership. Well, Boto, kickstart this for us. How can African leaders rededicate themselves to democracy? Is it that African leaders are trying to tinker with democracy? Is that why we're seeing some of these takeovers? Is that the reason?
Well, these takeovers, it is one of the reasons, tinkering with democracy. And sometimes it is not creating the necessary atmosphere to prevent these coups happening. I was listening to a news item recently, one of the foreign stations, and it said that the terror activities in Burkina Faso risked entering into Ghana. And they even said that it has already entered into Ghana. People have already been recruited. So it's a matter of creating the necessary environment so that people will be satisfied enough not to engage in these activities. And these activities are very serious. And I know that sometimes tinkering with the constitution in order to extend your stay and all that. But if you look at the Ghanaian circumstances, it has not always been about tinkering with the constitution. Sometimes these coups are actually the politicians themselves using the military. Or sometimes you have other state actors. I mean, in barely 3 days' time, we'll be celebrating Ghana's Day of Shame, which is, I think, is the 59th anniversary or so of our first coup d'etat, which brought us to where we are today. I mean, as a country with the CPP and Nkrumah, we're pressing forward with our agenda. And then we now know that the CIA worked through certain actors to bring us where we are, together with our own indigents. So we need to create the necessary environment, especially with the political class, where you have the sort of system where there's a certain, I would say, a certain inclusivity. Let us all realize that we are in this together, and nobody who is encouraging a coup none of them is doing it for the general good of the country, unless in certain circumstances. Our constitution, for example, says that if someone threatens to overthrow the constitution or overthrows the constitution, then you are entitled to also, to defend the constitution. So it goes beyond the politicians themselves tinkering with the constitution.
Okay.
You have other state actors, as we had in 1966. You also have the general situation on the ground. If the boys are hungry, then they become fodder for these people. Yeah.
Danko, if you look at the recent one in Burkina Faso, I think it's Mali and
Niger,
and
now Chad is Central African Republic.
Is it about the politicians, the economy, or someone feeling that a certain upper hand is oppressing the will of the people?
Listen, you see, we need to be plain here.
Okay.
Are we practicing democracy? Because you see, democracy is not going to have an elections.
But it is what?
What is democracy? It's power by the people.
Yeah.
It's government by the people. And then the most popular definition of democracy is government of the people, government by the people, government for the people. Now, in all sincerity, can we say beyond the government being of the people, because all the people we voting, is it government by the people? And is the government for the people? Is it for our benefit? And here in Africa,
that's why when we, for example, we can speak about in the Ghana context. That's why when
I'm talking about the Ghana context. But
when the government is not performing and we're voting out, is that not we telling you that?
No, but accountability, you see, we voting him out, we having the ability to vote him out. It's just a third of what democracy ought to be. Because let me give you a typical example. Contrary to what people say, Europe largely became democratic after 1945. Europe, when you take away Britain and to a small extent France. By 1939, Germany was under a dictatorship. Italy, Mussolini was a dictatorship. France, General Franco.
Mussolini is just recent.
Then I was saying that by the 39, so after 45, was after 45, where Europe, the principles and values of liberal democracy permeated Europe. And it was just around the same time where democracy also started in Africa. Because we started Ghana, because we can say that by 1951, if you are talking about democracy, you understand? So how is it that they have managed to sustain their own? You see, to sustain democracy, then the power must be truly by the people. And you can only do that where we deliberately and intentionally have a decentralized system. Because when you go to what's called Europe, power is largely truly decentralized at the borough level, at the city level, and so in fact they do everything at the local level. So most of the time their presidents, they only deal with foreign affairs. They only deal with foreign affairs. But in Ghana, and I want to use Ghana because we are the poster boy of democracy in Africa.
Yes.
In Ghana, were you not ashamed? Well, I was ashamed when our vice president last went to Abuboshi to go and launch a toilet. You see, so beyond we voting, can you say the power is truly by the people? Are we involved in decision making truly? And when I say it's not about our parliamentarians going there, proper democracy, you have power is so decentralized that when and that's last week I said it, that real governance is at the local level. That's where real governance happens. Do we have proper governance at the local level? And can you also say that this democracy has been for our benefit? Because let's be honest, let's be candid and frank. You see, and also when you want to sustain democracy, then you as the leader, you must deliberately build that right political culture that will sustain democracy. And that right political culture is a culture that will tolerate diverse views. We are talking about multi-party democracy. And one of the abiding qualities or values of a multi-party democracy is the value of pluralism. The understanding that my brother Kwame Nkrumah will not entirely share my view, but I will respect his views. And lastly, a democracy that empowers the people to hold their leaders truly accountable. Would you say that our leaders are truly accountable? Well, if they are truly accountable, there are some of things we have said here. There's team, there's vindictiveness, he did this to me. No. So I hear what the president said, the former president said. When he had the 8 years, he didn't do, in my view, he didn't do much to entrench democracy in terms of its values. Let us collectively, as a people, understand that that's the best system which can guarantee for us the rule of law and do everything to ensure that we have true democracy that works in the interest of the people.
All right. Prof, I beg to give you just 2 minutes here so we can wrap up our time as fast.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. I think former president said this when he visited, he went to Nigeria, the launch of a book.
Yes.
It was on that platform that he said democracy remains the best option for Africa. And it's true. But let me change the emphasis. We're looking at the negative part of democracy. I mean, this Africa, what we have gone through. We also don't forget, we have had successes as well. Other countries, although we've gone through a lot of issues, we've handed over power peacefully in Ghana, Botswana, South Africa, some other countries. So when we are looking at this democracy, let's also praise other countries that have also chopped. Mm-hmm. It's a fair that we do this. Yeah. But my last point on it is that there are some systems we have that those systems don't also support democracy.
Yeah.
And these are the things that we should be concerned about.
What systems?
Well, economic situations.
Yeah.
If someone wants to cause a coup, what will trigger? Cannot get food, inflation, cost of living, going high. What must a person do? We don't subscribe. We don't want this to happen. But the system should be corrected so that we don't get ourselves into this. But remember, we've gone through a lot. Regular election, we've done this in Africa, multi-party democracy, peaceful election, power transfer. We've done this in Africa. So let's look at the positive side of it, and then we can make a good case for this.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. But if you can read to me the headline on your paper, you do same, and then we can go. Prof, well, let me start from you. The headline on the front page of your paper. Yeah.
Create new jobs.
Create new jobs.
And stop sucking workers.
Okay.
That's a good headline.
That's the custodian, eh?
That's what he brought to me.
Okay, the custodian.
I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah, custodian.
So who said that?
Bawumia tells Muhammad.
Okay, all right. So that's it. The other ones. Okay, that's what interest. That's of interest.
I think that's
right. Yes, Dankwa.
Okay, it has similar, but I'll go for that headline. So, no charity in foreign relations. Okay. Akufo-Addo.
Okay.
And Osustu kicks against assembly nominee, recommends to others.
Okay. All right.
That's from the news center.
Okay. Yes. Vote.
No more coups.
Which is good news. Bawumia slams Mahama over dismissal of innocent employees. Impriso MP calls for an end to politically motivated dismissals. And finally, NSA payroll saga. Mustafa Yusuf Asibe entry, rubbish allegations.
Okay, so that's Kwame Nkrumah Boatio. He is General Secretary of the the first president of the Republic's Party, CPP. We also had Andrew Appiah Dankwa, he's spokesperson for the Yellow Army Movement for Change, and Professor Isaac Body is Dean, Accounting and Finance, UPSA. Well, this has been the news review. We'll take a break here. When we return, we'll bring you the AM Sports because my colleague, Muftau Nabila is on the standby to bring you that. But we'll move on and bring you the big stories as well. But just before we go, select a solar system from our various solar packages ranging from 30,000 cedis to 99,000 cedis. All our solar systems come with lithium-ion batteries. Get a solar water heater, a solar home system, a solar power station, or a solar generator ranging from 1,000 watts to 20,000 watts. We also sell reverse osmosis machines for water treatment. You can Google SolarMate Ghana to find us on both Facebook or on Instagram as well. Contact SolarMate Ghana on 0508-320470. SolarMate Ghana is located at Adjoining Ghana, East Legon. SolarMate, we go everywhere. Well, we'll take a break here. We'll be back with more. Please do stay with us.